good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to another HR Today educational podcast. I'm Elliot Clark, the CEO of HRO Today. We publish HR Today Magazine, HR Today EMEA, HR Today APAC. We host the HR Today events, the forums and educational events held around the world, and we manage the HRO Today Association. Today, we're going to be talking about hiring decisions. Now, when you use the term hiring decision, most people associate that with choosing between candidates. But we all in HR land know that in reality, that is the culmination of a complex process that starts with what kind of job is this? Is it temporary? Is it permanent? What skills are needed? Where do we find them? All of these decisions require data, analysis, and frankly, judgment. Now, modern TA organizations have resources available in consultation, many of them with their RPO and MSP partners, to analyze this data. But are companies making full use of their partners' resources to help them make these strategic and tactical workforce decisions before we get to the actual job capabilities? So let's discuss better TA decision making. Our guests today have decided, get the joke, to help us do just that. Amy Bush is the president of the RPO business for KellyOCG and has a wealth of experience designing and managing large-scale, global, and complex solutions for some of the world's largest companies. Joining her as well is Brian Knapp, who is the VP of Digital Operations for KellyOCG, and he's been with them for more than 6 years and has more than 20 years in talent acquisition, data, and analytics. Amy and Brian, welcome to the podcast. And would one of you like to add anything about KellyOCG for our audience?
We're so glad to be here, Elliot. It's nice to, as we get into this discussion, it's nice to bring my technical interpreter and Brian with me to the conversation today. I think everyone in life needs one of those, what we really mean and how to say it in a technical sense. So, Brian, thanks for being my partner in crime today. And in terms of what I would say about KellyOCG is that as we face this landscape where we're seeing the economy driven by events rather than a normal cyclical nature, we have to be ready for everything. It's hard to predict an event. And so as we look at these decisions, you're creating a real juxtaposition in the market of what we need in talent, when we need it, and how to get there. And KellyOCG is bringing very, very forward-thinking processes, but also proprietary technology to the table to help our partners solve these problems. So we're excited to be here today to talk through that.
Thank you guys for joining the podcast. So, at our recent HR Today forum, we had a lot of CHROs and TA leaders talking about their just general confusion, whether it's economic uncertainty or the impact of AI on workforces. They have access to all this data and all this analysis, but not necessarily incorporating it into their decision making. And also, I think sometimes they only look at a few of the sources they may have within their own infrastructure, which is specific to only their company. So do you think that companies, client companies, and specifically client companies of the RPO and MSP providers understand the considerable infrastructure you have to support, to analyze jobs, to ensure compliance, to source talent pools, and the sophistication of your agentic sourcing and screening applications? And if they don't understand that infrastructure and how broad your view of the market is, why not? And what would you like them to know about that option right now?
I think it's a fantastic question to lead in. And I do think in talking to our partners and and hearing their point of view on this topic of the complexity of the infrastructure, I think they appreciate it greatly, how complex it is. But to my point when we were first opening, where do you start? And with the changes in different legislation and complexity, as well as not quite knowing what that 3-year plan or 2-year plan even looks like right now due to the market conditions, when you're looking at establishing such a complex infrastructure, that's hard to do without a long-term view or investment. And that's why more and more companies are looking to a partner like KellyOCG to come in and be able to provide that infrastructure for them. Where we're monitoring the different legislation, where we're making sure that we're shifting with the market conditions, and that's our full-time job, and that they don't have to take that on. But there's still considerations that you should be asking a partner of what's important in this space. What if you're going out and interviewing or asking, or even if you're looking at it for internal, where do you start? And I think that Brian is probably best poised to say, if you're asking a partner questions, what are the things, Brian, you should ask? And then if you're looking at it internally, what are the first things that you should look for? And as Brian talks techie, I'll do my best on the back end to translate anything back to normal human language if needed. So Brian, over to you.
I think you nailed it, both you and Elliot start here. We find, many of our clients, if not most, just the sheer scale can lead to stagnation and the where to start question, analysis paralysis, if you will. It can truly be daunting. The complexity, logistics, and speed, I guess, at which the talent acquisition process occurs changes daily. It's something that we have to evolve with, respond to. Balancing and responding to these challenges requires a disciplined approach. Standardized processes, I guess, is where we often start with our clients, and aligning application of emerging technologies, including AI, which we'll hit on a bit here, that can support this approach. So the first thing I would ask is, do you as a client, do you have a team in place that focuses on this effort full time? Do you have dedicated resources to spend their time truly digging in and understanding what needs to be accomplished? What level of investment is there? Is time appropriately allocated? Are you putting primacy on that team and what they produce?
I think that's a great focus of just making sure that, whether it's internal or external, that you have the time, the dedication, the knowledge, to really support this. There's so many details that go into it, from how you're looking at data outside of your own data, market condition data, how you're weaving it in, how you're looking at marketing data from your website, from your social media, how you're weaving that in. And do you have the ability to do that? A lot of internal systems at our clients and partners are disparate. And so we have a proprietary technology that aggregates all of that data to allow you to make informed decisions. Seeing it all aggregated in one place to bring that forward, but that takes a lot of investment and time, and I just think that you have to be really honest if you have that capability internally or not.
All right, so let's look at, you guys have all this data available. Now the clients don't have they don't even have a fraction of your budget for HR technology and whatever. Let's talk about how to better collaborate with them. It sounds like they may not even be asking you the right questions. And I'm familiar with the Surveyo product and its capabilities to literally pull data from a lot of sources simultaneously and give at least a both visual and analytical reporting capability. So how do you fix this problem and harness these resources that you and the Kelly OCG and some other companies have? Given the capabilities you can bring to bear in a proper partnership, how can your clients better collaborate with you and the other providers out there to make the best decisions, both tactically and strategically, given that we live in this event-driven, news-driven economy? right? So you've got this data, and I'm wondering if what you're seeing in the Surveyo data, in terms of it responding, is the data showing across the macro market, across your hundreds, not thousands of Kelly clients, that we live in this event-driven world and how to deal with it. So how would clients be better off getting access to this? What questions should they be asking you? And how could they better collaborate? I know it's a long question that's complicated, but we have a lot of time. So go ahead and do it.
So the first thing I would say is getting started early, Elliot. We walk in, engage with the client as early as possible in the process. We're not looking to join with any sort of predefined, prescribed ideas or thought. It really is, let's understand what their challenges are. They often, kind of to your earlier point, don't know what they don't know. So they're only aware of their internal systems and the data that they have available to them. But we bring this other perspective, as you stated, with our size, we're working with a lot of different providers, a lot of different tools, a lot of different data access points, and bringing that as part of the conversation. But the goal is to engage with them well in advance, not just when they have I have a position to fill kind of attitude here, but what is their strategy? What is their plan? And let's build an approach, if you will, that best satisfies that. So early on is key.
I would also say that it's okay to not know what questions to ask because as long as you're open to the conversation, we know what questions to ask you. So don't always feel overwhelmed. Allow, your partner to dig in a little bit and ask questions you might not honestly connect them right away of what does this have to do with, what does A have to do with Z? But we can take you on that journey and we can make sure that we're asking you those right questions. What's so fascinating about it, it's almost that ready for everything mentality of combining that data with a very nimble and agile TA model that can scale up, scale down, and can shift. It's not just the up or down, it's sideways. You might have new positions you've never had. The market conditions on a position that you've always filled easily could have completely changed. You might have changes in geography. So combining the data and access to the data to make decisions about that hiring before you have the need, that readiness, combining it with a model. And what's fascinating is when we're looking at the data now in our system, we date and timestamp all these events from weather, geopolitical, you name it, in different communities around the world. We make sure that it's very local, and we can see the impact from these events in the data and how they're driving either pauses, slowdowns, or acceleration in hiring. So having that all together is one part. Then it's what do you do with it, and are you ready to take action on it? So that's where a strong partner will come into play and help guide you through it.
Well, given that, we can somewhat predict trends, at least economists spend a lot of time modeling that out. We can't predict events, but we also don't have good models for modulating their impact. So what you're saying is that if a client comes to you and says, okay, I'm going to build a plant in Florida, as an example, what can I expect over the next few years in sort of cyclical variations based on weather events, which, there have been a lot of hurricanes, unfortunately, that have impacted that state. You can actually answer that question for them and say, well, you're going to see this kind of a pattern depending on where the weather events are occurring.
That's correct. We can go back and look at all of the overlap of data from market conditions to weather to how it impacted it, the hiring and certain types of, depending upon role, perhaps type of role, industry. And Brian and his team have built this so that we can do that. And it's really interesting. It goes back to Brian's first point of asking what kind of team exists to support this effort. Because a lot of times as partners, myself, I'll go to Brian and I'll say, my clients need this, this, and this. And, at first he'll stare at me a little bit, a lot, let's just say. And then he'll say, we can do that. Let me do that. And so it's constantly this innovation to make sure that we provide that trend analysis. Now we also provide the analysts with it to say, this is how we see it. But that has to be validated by our client partners and make sure that they feel comfortable and they drive the direction that we go. We can put all the advice out there, but they'll decide and then we'll help them execute on that. But it's interesting, Elliot, to have that mix of data and trend analysis in this event-based market.
You do wonder as well, and I don't know if you guys want to speak to it in the remaining time we have left, but how often do you feel like the clients may be comfortable that they have access to the information because the software providers who have built are in their infrastructure, whatever those may be, whether it's a particular CRM or an HRMS system, have convinced them that everything they need is in there, when in fact it never is. And as a result, they are sort of surprised. How often do you find that they're surprised by what you can bring to bear in terms of data and insights?
Well, it's interesting. I think those systems, I don't think they're necessarily wrong. I think that they provide everything maybe for that system, but they're not providing everything that our clients need because they need that system overlaid with another system, overlaid with another system, and they don't always talk to each other. So being able to have that internal data overlaid all together in one spot, then you combine it with the external data market, maybe some tools, other tools, external tools that give you other market data. And then you start going to weather or event-based things. You just create a more colorful, multi-dimensional picture. So those systems might provide a tremendous amount. It's then just also what do you do with it all once it overlays? Can you predict failure? Can you see where something is going to be 6 weeks down the road? Can you predict trends from events, etc.? So I think all of those systems are robust. We're certainly not looking to be in the business of designing and owning all of those systems, but we certainly want to be in the business of taking them as point solutions and bringing them all together and aggregating them for our partners. It sounds so simple, but I don't think that it quite is, Brian, with that unified data model on the back end. But I make it sound a little simpler than it is.
Brian, anything you want to respond to that?
Yeah, there's only one other aspect I'd like to hit on. It really comes down to collaboration with the partners. So it's about the people, the existing team if they have one, but really working in an open fashion to um, provide the solution. As Amy hit on, there's many systems the client already has that are fit for purpose. Usually they're missing something. They don't have the full picture, and we'll bring that to the table. But it's collaboration from a people perspective, but also a technology perspective in order to arrive at the best set of data, the most meaningful set of analytics. And it's sometimes we run into some lack of understanding in that regard that, we need to kind of open things up a little bit and have an honest dialogue about their systems and their processes in order to arrive at the best possible solution.
Well, that's great. We are this went by really fast because it's an interesting topic, and the ability to aggregate from multiple sources and build a coherent model that takes all that into account is incredibly valuable. I think many HR departments overlook the kind of insights that partners such as KellyOCG can bring. So I want to thank you brought us insights and data today. So there, you're helping us out. Amy Bush is the president of the RPO business for KellyOCG, and Brian Knapp is their VP of Digital Operations. Thank you, folks, for taking part in the podcast today.
Thanks, Elliot.
Thank you. Always glad to be a part of these, Elliot.
And we're going to have you guys back to talk about this some more. To our audience, thank you so much for your time and attention. Remember, your partners can help you. Ask them what you should be asking them. It sounds like they will give you a lot of suggestions. Once again, decision making can improve, and we're going to decide to do that as a community. This is Elliot Clark. I'm the CEO of HR Today. Thank you for listening to this HR Today educational podcast, and we'll look forward to having you join us on our next one.